Yes, go ahead.
All right, I'll get things rolling here. Hi everyone, welcome once again to How It Works. This is the podcast about how life works and how we can heal and adapt from our past experiences. And I'm here with my co-host Selyna Breeze from Belgium, and she is a trauma specialist. And our special guest this week is Chuck H, who is somebody who I know through recovery. And her topic this week is going to be service work and carrying the message. And, I want to point out that this podcast is one of the types of service work that people do. Service work doesn't necessarily mean, standing in a line handing out food. It could be any number of things that give to the general public, and these podcasts are for me it's an important part of my recovery because it helps to spread the message and explain to people what the benefits to recovery are, what the causes of addiction and mental health issues are. And so each of us in our own way is doing service work right now. Hey Chuck, thanks for joining us. Selena, how are you doing this week?
Well, it's very, very busy this week. Well, the last few weeks actually. I told you, but tomorrow until Wednesday, I have 3 days, so I can catch up. And actually, I'm not feeling really well physically, but I do feel great to have to make it here.
I,
But everything will be
all right, well,
wonderful because I'm looking forward. It's a very interesting topic, service, how to bring the message. It's very broad topic, so I am excited. Looking forward.
great. Well, thanks for coming. I'm sorry you're not feeling well. Hopefully that will improve soon. So, Chuck, how are you doing today? What would you like to start us out with?
I'm doing good today, Jeff. Thank you. And Selyna, again, thank you for joining and being part of this. I'm doing good. The week was a little bit more of an emotional roller coaster for me than I had expected. I just recognized 2 years of sobriety on Friday, the 25th. And, I guess it's funny what our mind perceives as um, good and bad and things that we'd like to have happen. And I was just, I guess, not processing things or processing them in a different way. And I allowed some work challenges and some work struggles to kind of get in the way. And um, it took me a few days to apply the tools that I currently have in my toolbox and navigate through them. And as a part of my routine, my recovery routine of waking up daily and doing my prayer, my meditation, and then joining a meeting first thing in the morning, really kind of sets my sails straight for the day. And that's kind of what I needed. I guess I needed to finish out the week and get to where I'm at today. And yeah, so overall good, in a good headspace and a good mood, and looking forward to chatting with you guys today and just talking a little bit about my experience with this topic.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to start with mentioning is through my research, I've discovered that service work is a big part of a lot of different belief systems. The Quakers are very into service work. 12-step people are into service work. I have a friend who is going to a yoga retreat in California for a few weeks, and it's required as part of their stay that they help out, that they do some help in the kitchen with the garden, with the, and the Buddhists themselves, if you look at a Buddhist monastery, the monks are constantly involved in some type of service to that community, whether it's raking sand or trimming bushes, or, their lifestyle is basically focused around service work. So, you know, why do you think that is? Why do you think that it's such an important part of life?
Well, for me, the way that it's impacted me now, I mean, I don't consider myself being a people pleaser all too much, but I try to leverage my knowledge and experience to try to help others if I can. And I've always done that through my life. Being born and raised like a middle lower class family, we didn't have a lot of money, and I needed to learn to fend for myself at an early age. So gathering as many of the types of skills that I tried to acquire as I've aged and matured into an adult. You know, I always did get a good sense, a good feeling of being able to help other people, especially in the time of need. But along with that, as my alcoholism progressed, I found it being more to feed my ego and to accomplish something that would probably award me monetarily, so I could buy some more beer and alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since being in recovery and practicing the steps and being of service to others, as you alluded to at the beginning, is just really trying to express where I've been, and if people relate to it. I think sometimes at some level people do and people don't, but just knowing that even if it's something as simple as listening to someone who's had a hard day, and not really doing anything about it. I am a problem solver, right? But so my trade and my knowledge base comes from helping people. And what we go terms in our trade are like, you know, if we're going to fail, we must fail quickly, right? And we do a lot of data analysis around those failures, and we do, you know, the root cause and countermeasure analysis and things of that nature. Always working towards continual improvement, but all the while ignoring my own improvement and where I was at. And so the service work aspect for me, number one, takes me out of my own head at the time. I can go ahead and focus on just communicating my experiences in hopes that it'll help somebody else. And, you know, beyond that, it's really, it's making a connection and growing a fellowship in which we stand side by side and shoulder to shoulder, and we fight these diseases together as a team and a group, and not individually.
Right, right. And referring to AA, you know, that's part of one of the readings is selfishness and self-centered, we feel, is the root of our problems. And that's true of active alcoholics and even dry drunks. You know, we become very self-centered. We become narcissistic, even if that's not our normal nature. When in active addiction, people have narcissistic behaviors. They're just all about themselves. They're, where am I going to get my next drink? Where am I going to get my next fix? Where am I going to, you know, and we kind of stop acknowledging other people because we're consumed by the addiction. And so this service work, you know, with AA, there's the Trinity is unity, recovery, service. And those three things make up the recovery program. Without all three, your recovery isn't complete. And I think that it's, you know, what's true of alcoholics and addicts is actually, to some degree, true of all humans. That all humans tend to be narcissistic and self-consumed when they're involved in their ego, when they're really caught up in themselves. And like you were saying, it's really important for us to get out of ourselves to discover ourselves. I think Gandhi said that, you know, to know yourself is, you know, to serve others. So Selyna, yeah, you know, one of the things I've noticed about you early on is that you do a lot of service, you know, either directly or indirectly. You've put together a lot of recordings that inspire people to talk about, you know, how to attain a better style of life by letting different things go. How does that, you know, how would you say that impacts your life? Do you feel that you get a lot of benefit out of doing these videos and inspirations for others?
Yeah, actually, Jeff, it's goes automatic. I think it's a very important part of the process, as I've noticed our guests here who are in transformation and recovery. Active service is a part of it. It's not just a part of it, but it's unconscious, important, proof of transformation or recovery that you are really in. Because when you realize that you have gone through the process, even if you're not completely healed, you have this feeling of, I need to share my experience. And that is already an act of service. Sharing your story, your lessons is unconscious most of the time, but you never know who you helped upon sharing your story and being authentic with your stories. And for me, I don't really feel that it's a work. It's it's just really a part of doing things, and that makes us happy, makes us inspired doing our things every day. Because if you do what you love, you don't feel it's an obligation. It's a task to do. So I've been doing a lot of recordings. I don't post it. I post only few, but that makes me also very busy because I also visit my clients personally, even if it's not necessary. I do a lot of online works, but if I have the time, I really have to make the time to visit them personally. Even if I have to drive 2 hours, 3 hours, it it gives me a different level of fulfillment in the energy, being with a person, feeling their, their presence is very different when we do online sessions. So for me, I think it's not only me. You feel it also, Chuck, Jeff, because I feel that you are really very active in recovery. We all have stories of relapse, setbacks, and a kind of addiction. I have that too. It doesn't matter I'm not alcoholic, I'm not addicted to drugs, but I have another kinds of addiction. Like overthinking is the worst kind of addiction. I've been there. And that is still, I'm working on it really hard because there are triggers every day that affects our process of recovery that makes us, we do setbacks unconsciously most of the time. And yeah, this is really very important. The point is, if you are very serious on recovery and transformation and making a change to your life, you don't have to do a lot of work to show to people that you are doing active service. It comes automatically without you knowing it. You heard from people, because I do hear that a lot. But for me, no, I'm not doing it for pleasure. It's just automatic. And you get the pleasure if you don't do it for pleasure. If you get what I meant.
Yeah, I understand. And it's it's one of these things. I see it a lot in early recovery, and I'm sure Chuck sees this too and has experienced it himself. We enter this state called pink cloud, where we have this renewed sense of belief that everything's going to be okay, and we start to feel compelled to help other people. Well, in Pink Cloud, we're not necessarily ready to help other people, in the way that we'd like to, because, me with 3 weeks sober, I'm not necessarily the best person to talk to about how to stay sober. I only have 3 weeks of recovery, but that doesn't mean we can't be of service. And that's where, I take my new sponsees and I encourage them, go to meetings, do the readings, offer to clean up, offer to make coffee, offer to, pass out literature, do something to get outside of yourself and serve others with no expectation of something in return. Chuck, you've got the one Facebook group, and you also have a fairly regular meeting that you host. How are things going with that meeting?
Yeah, those are very, very good meetings, very impactful among the fellowship that is involved there, and being able to reach an audience and a demographic of people just coming out of recovery, so they are in very early sobriety. So giving a format and a platform, I should say, for them to be able to join and continue. I'll just give a quick backstory so Selyna knows that the treatment center that I was part of hosted 7-day-a-week meetings, and it became a little too much on their staff and their budget. And so they dropped initially just the Saturday meeting, and then they eventually dropped the Sunday meeting. And a few of the members of that group, myself included, continued the Zoom meeting, and we created a separate link, and we've had that fellowship active and growing. And it's been extremely beneficial for so many people, because I hear that confirmation from them. A lot of people are shuffling and dealing with work during the week. And we see numbers, we see participation levels at, between 50 and 70 people. And then on the weekends, it drops down a little, 30 to 40. But, like I said, hearing it from them directly, that how much it impacts having that meeting is really super important to their recovery. And yeah, so with that, the Facebook thing was more my initial kind of like you said, the pink cloud effort, right? I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something. And you and I connected as a byproduct of being members of a different group as well. And that, early on for me it was just kind of like when I first walked into the AA halls, right? I couldn't really do too much until I had 3 months, as far as, doing commitments or anything like that. But I knew the power of it, because when I was in treatment and the commitments would come in and speak on Sundays, on the weekends, I remember being really, really impacted by just the gravity and the stories that I heard of those people and the success that they were having. And I wanted that, right? So now, as a byproduct of being part of that RCA, I'm not trying to plug them, but as being part of that treatment center, I get to go back and speak to the patients that are in recovery. And in a little bit, I'd like to further expand on a story that I have about that and the impact of, talking to the patients directly. So like for me, initially going out on commitments was more or less trying not to be so nervous that I'd, stop and break down and lose my place, and not have really much confidence in any type of public speaking at all. And again, this is me just overthinking everything. That's why I have these squirrels all around me, because, these things just run like in the cage in my head, right?
Yeah.
And so, the early commitment stuff was really good. And then, after I was able to start chairing meetings in that AA hall, which I call my original home group, I did that. And it gave me a lot of satisfaction. Some people like to tease me and say, oh, here comes Chuck running his 100% perfectly organized meeting, because I had my, my notes and my bulleted list of everything I wanted to accomplish, right? Again, engineer, overthinking, right? But this is the type of structure I love. So, I went with that, and just being available after the meeting and developing the fellowship and talking to people was really, really super important. Both, and I didn't realize the benefit to me at the time, because it was still very early for me, and I'm still learning that now. I'm not going to sit here and act like I have this thing together, because I don't. But what I do know is that, the routines that I have implemented thus far in my recovery work for me. And that's what, is obviously most important for my sobriety.
Right. Yeah, we are creatures of habit, and that's one of the things I teach people, to as an addict, I've noticed that I always have active addictions. And so my goal is not necessarily to stop being an addict because, as I've learned, that's not really possible. What you do learn is how to develop healthier addictions. So, like addictions that have less control over me, addictions that have more benefit to me. Like I can literally say that I'm addicted to recovery. There's really no downside to that addiction, although, uh, in some cases you can get a little bit fanatical about it. There's lots of people who get fanatical in recovery. And one of the things I mention to people often is that there's a lot of sick people in recovery and we trigger each other and we scare off a lot of people. It's recovery has a very low percentage of success, and between 4 and 8% of people introduced to it will stick with it and go through the steps with a sponsor and realize the actual promises. But that 4 to 8% of us who stick with it and take it serious, I mean, we really swear by it. It's something that's like, yeah, this has become part of my life now. It's not something I could just walk away from because, I don't know what I would do without this process. And the 12 steps says that having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry the message to others and practice these principles in all our affairs. And in that way, we become a community of attraction so that the people who are ready, who are interested, see our example of recovery and want what we have. And, with all these anonymous fellowships, it's discouraged to advertise. It's discouraged to, create a big public awareness about things. It's non-commercial and stay out of what's the expression? We don't want to affiliate ourselves with any organization, institution, this, et cetera, et cetera. So, it's really more of a law of attraction thing with 12-step groups. This, of course, is different because what we're in right now, this is how it works, and the thing that I operate, it's actually called mixed recovery. It's my company, and my company doesn't have any of those limiting traditions. So we're very public. If you want to promote RC and anything else that you're involved in, you're more than welcome to do that here. Whereas obviously you couldn't do that at an AA meeting; they'd kick you out.
It's funny you say that, Jeff, because my first little experience that I had after a little bit of time in my home group, coming from a recovery based rehab center, right, that encourages a 12-step program of some type, but not a specific one, not a specific A, correct?
Sure.
As I brought that material into the AA hall with me, it was eventually met with some resistance. And I didn't quite understand it, and I took everything personally. And I actually stayed away from that meeting after a couple of episodes with some of the longer term people in fellowship that disagreed with some of the readings that I had shared with the group. And here I'm, I thought to myself, I'm just bringing material in to try to inspire people. But there is an integrity level with AA that doesn't like that. I guess you want to call the, conflict of interest stuff. And
Yeah.
and you're right. So my inexperience in not having full understanding of how that works, it kind of pushed me away from it a little bit, and I was a little soured for some time, and I had some resentments towards some people because a vote was actually taken, and they did a group conscience, and they agreed to do AA approved literature only. And still to this day today, it's in their daily monologue. It's in their opening for that meeting, which I can totally understand and accept now. It wasn't so much the case then because I was kind of hurt about it. I took it completely personally. But I see the differences of that now. And I also agree with the fact, and what I've heard is that, there are so many different types of addictions. There are so many different types of personalities, and whatever it takes to get somebody to click that light bulb on and catch on and say there is hope, that maybe I can possibly do this, that's the most important aspect of it, I believe, because it's really changing our minds and our behaviors in the way that we've thought kind of poisonously and incorrectly for so long. And you know, I really just catching the eye or catching the ear of somebody and having them relate to something that you say or do in that attraction level, right? Like, I don't like to preach and tell people what to do, and I try to be very aware of that.
Yeah.
I want people to be attracted to what they see and not, you know, if they hear something that does that and helps it along, great. But I'm not going to tell you what to do, because what worked for me not necessarily is going to work for anybody else.
Right. And it's a very good points about these fellowships. Let's take AA for example. I have learned to 100% agree with their AA approved literature only. Because once you start introducing material from outside sources, it dilutes the message of AA, and AA works as it stands without question. The way it was written, that process works, and they don't want it corrupted with other things. And for example, one of the things that Bill W. said is that we're never cured of alcoholism. What happens is we're given a daily reprieve based on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Well, then you get into NA, and NA has this other saying where it says the idea that once an addict, always an addict needs to be destroyed. Those two conflict with each other directly. In AA, we're saying, yes, we're always going to be alcoholics. And that doesn't mean we have to carry shame because of that label. And NA is like, oh, we can be cured of addiction. I don't agree with that. And so, you can't have these two different philosophies mixed. You have to have them completely separate so that they can be effective. And it's not about, control, and it's not about punishing people. It's just about, it's like the Atkins diet. You're not going to mix the Atkins diet with some other diet. You're going to do that diet exclusively or do something else exclusively.
Right.
So, Selyna, what are your thoughts at this point?
Oh, that's really very interesting, Jeff. And I think as what Chuck said, when he took things personally in and admitting that and being aware of that, I think it's part of, it's very, very interesting, because not everybody, even if they are very active in recovery or transformation, whatever you call it, the ego, we go back to the ego, admitting it, that, oh, I took things personally. That is surrendering the ego, taking charge of the ego. The ego is still there. So like when we say we will never be cured of addiction, we'll always be addicted to something. And that is also a very important indication that we are active. We surrender our ego. We are not completely cured, but we are aware that the process is lifelong. And that is already, that is a sign. That is your, manifestation that you are in control with yourself, that you are serious in the process that you are in. It's the ego thing. So when someone triggers us, we take it personally. What's wrong with me? Why they don't accept my idea? There is no right or wrong idea. It's just a part of transformation or recovery that includes both. And it is for the higher good. If you look at it, No one's idea is right or wrong. It depends how we perceive. It depends on the level of someone's perception. Like in a group, that's why we are always triggered. We always have conflict with other members because they think their ideas are the right ones. And then we are triggered because we think our ego is being triggered because sometimes we think, oh, I am this far with my recovery, with my transformation. So they have to accept my idea and respect it and apply it. Like Chuck said, I don't want to tell people to do what I say. I just want them to attract what I do if we can use that for the process. And that is really very profound because not everybody can realize that we have to be open. If people don't accept the ideas that we bring on the table, that means they are not yet there. They are not yet ready to observe it because their level of perception is not yet that high. But it doesn't matter that we know better. It's step by step. Maybe some people will say, oh, you are already there and I am here, but we should not think that way. We are all working so hard to go farther. Even if it's slow, forward is forward. And that is, we have to make people understand, but we cannot change them. We cannot, in a count of 1, 2, 3, okay, here is the idea, here is the right thing to do. No, it's not. We just have to be there to show them what we've learned, and if they can use it, then you have to take it. As you said, Chuck, not everything works for everybody. And that is really true.
Yeah, it's when we talk about it, you're talking about ego, and we self-identify as alcoholics, but an alcoholic in recovery, active in recovery, is a healthy version of the alcoholic, and the condition is something that can be put into remission. So I have all these character defects, I have all these addictions, and one by one at a time, I can put them in remission. Under the right circumstances, any one of those things can resurface. And so when we talk about spiritual maintenance, it's like continue to work a program, continue to work on your self-awareness, because when you stop, it's easy to slip back into old behaviors. And being selfish and self-centered is something that's easy to slip back into if you don't do any service work. When you do service work, you're reminded, hey, there's people that have it worse than I do. I need to be grateful for what I have. And I feel better about myself when I can share something that benefits somebody else, but it doesn't benefit me. So to me, that has a lot to do with this 12-step awakening. It's once you realize, well, geez, these 12 steps really work, you feel compelled to spread the message, to share it with others. And I use that word a lot. I feel that, compelled really describes why I stay involved in recovery and why I keep sponsoring people and posting things online daily. I don't have to. I don't need to. I can live without any one of those things, but some part of me is saying, this is helping you somehow, so keep doing it. We have a couple guests here. Let's see if they had anything that they wanted to share on the topic. Plesk, did you want to talk about service work at all? Maybe away from the computer. Salt TV, anything you wanted to share? No.
Salty is muted. She is muted, I think.
Yeah, just visitors. Okay. So Chuck, why don't you tell us more about some of the service work that you're involved in and what's been working for you?
Yeah, so like Selyna alluded to, right? About, it reminds me of a comment that you made, Jeff, a couple weeks ago. I heard you say this, you spot it, you got it, right? And you wonder why that, we're triggered by things when people have a different opinion and then we get flustered or whatever. And I really like that. And that to me, it resonates with me. And I think about that when I start to feel my blood pressure go up or I start to feel triggered, right? Um, but back to the service part of it. So, um, before when I was asked to do service work, I would kind of pick and choose um, what I was comfortable at the time to do. Um, the second group that I joined, which is an AA group, is a Friday night group that does weekly commitments, and I thought that would be a great idea to get out and kind of spread the message and become better at and more confident in myself in speaking in front of people. And so I did that, but now whenever I'm asked to do service now, like you said, that I'm compelled to do it. And it's really not for me. And that transformation is really incredible for me to feel that and go through that in the last year or so, because I was going out on commitments and I was extremely nervous. And I really was kind of all over the place with my topics and stuff. And I never really told the same story twice, other than like my family history and my upbringing and everything. Um, so a few weeks ago, and this is kind of the story I wanted to share with you about how I was impacted most recently. Um, I was asked to do a commitment at the treatment center, in which I attended here in Massachusetts. So I went there, and I had learned of an unfortunate passing of somebody that worked there, and in my prayer I dedicated my commitment to him, and I had started speaking. And a couple of things that I wanted to change in the way I conveyed my message was I wanted to stand up in front of the room and I wanted to make eye contact with everybody in that room. Um, and so I kind of paced back and forth, and I told my story and I shared. And this share was a little different because it was more directed at the solution versus the problem, right? And I really wanted to communicate to them that I understood where they were, that that I had been there not too long before, and that I knew that they just finished dinner an hour before and they wanted to be in their rooms watching TV because the games were on. And instead, they made that commitment to come to the down to the auditorium and sit and listen to us. And so I did that. And when the meeting was over, we invited everybody up to speak, and everybody came up and thanked us for our service. And I noticed this one gentleman who positioned himself in the back of the line, and he was a big guy. He was like a lumberjack. And he come up to me, and he was welled up, and he had tears in his eyes. And he grabbed me, and he hugged me, and he looked at me, and he said, "I heard every single word that you said, man." And I went out to my car after that meeting, and I just remember having this profound feeling of, my God, I asked my higher power to just let one person be impacted by my speech tonight, that if anybody could hear it. And it happened right then and there. And I was completely moved by that situation where I experienced that connection with somebody in a way that hadn't happened previously. And then after that, interaction with this gentleman, um, knowing the alumni coordinator of that site, he contacted me and asked me if I was okay with giving my number to this patient. This patient had physically communicated to him that he was so moved by what I had said and what he heard that he wanted to connect with me. So here's a situation that happens where normally I would downplay it and say, not a big deal. He just asked for a phone number, da 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 da. No, this is higher power working without me controlling anything, without me doing anything other than what I was asked to do, which was to be of service. And all of this stuff that happens with a connection at the end is just so powerful. And for me to be able to sit here and experience that it's life changing in the respect of how I look and how I view service today, versus, how I looked at it earlier on in my sobriety.
Yeah, and it brings up an interesting related topic. I've been seeing a lot of reels online lately, online on Facebook about atheists and scientists trying to disprove the existence of God, trying to say there's no evidence of it and it doesn't make any sense. And it's like, yeah, but if you experience what we're talking about here, then you understand that there is something going on. And a couple ways that you could describe it is, okay, if there is no God, if there's no being God, well, there's still this other thing, the higher self. And the higher self is simply the best of us. It's us outside of our ego. And I say that people helping people is like God shaking hands, and that we have, every human being has this divine part of us, this part of us that's really the best of us. And when we put our egos aside and we serve other people, that's our closest connection to God or higher power or higher self, or whatever it is that you want to call it. It really doesn't matter what you call it, but that absolutely exists. It's something that you have to experience firsthand. I feel best about myself when I'm doing something for somebody else that they can't do for themselves. And speaking of open talks, I'm fairly active at a local recovery center, this place called the PC Alano Club. And there's a lot of good recovery in this place. There's tons of people doing service work. And I'm blessed that, once a year I do an open talk there. And my best open talks are the ones where I'm not trying to make a point. I'm not trying to anything. I'm just, sharing not only how it works, but why it
I
works.
think you're frozen, Jeff.
I'm frozen? Oh, that's funny. You were frozen too.
Ah, maybe me. Could be.
Uh,
Could be me.
but
Oh, yes, it's mine. Unstable connection. I see it.
no,
Okay,
no worries.
sorry.
So when I'm doing these open talks, I go into it with the idea that maybe if I can help one person, if I can have a positive impact on one person, then it's worthwhile. But even that, I don't have to do. It's just I do it with the hope of helping one person. And somehow that puts me in the right frame of mind to do an open talk. And, so many times the things that I rehearsed in my head beforehand, all of a sudden I just throw those out in the moment and speak from the heart instead. And, in that way, I feel that that's a big part of my recovery is doing these open talks, because I really feel like, I'm stepping out of my own way.
Yeah, that's very true. And I experienced that very thing that you mentioned about, rehearsing in your head. And I analyze a lot of what I'm saying as I say it. And when I had this commitment, when I spoke, I don't even know what happened. I checked out. Like I just started communicating and talking. I wasn't doing any self-reflection about what I was saying. I didn't curse once, which, I try to behave in that manner. I think that, you know, the foul language, I know some people gravitate towards it and use it as the way they express themselves. I find it to be a little bit detrimental in conveying the message. So I try to stay away from it. But yeah, and I flowed through that, that half an hour or 40 minutes or so, and I just really don't have a large recollection about what I said, but obviously it was impactful, and having the confirmation at the end, like you said, I'm not looking for it. I'm just asking my higher power, please, somebody hear my message, right? And it was just very profound for me at that point in time with what had happened with that one gentleman. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to do it because my way didn't work, right? This way works.
Yeah. Selyna, I've noticed that you do a lot of seminars. Um, and do you ever speak at these events?
Which one? Last year?
Yeah.
The one in the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I think that was for just business women or something. So do you ever get up and speak and inspire people?
Yes, there was a very we have all kinds of people from different walks of life. We even have some higher politicians and spiritual teachers. It was really very interesting, and what I have learned from them, um, that everybody who's who spoke at during the seminars, they all have kinds of, dark moments in their lives. They've been through what they call the dark night of the soul. That's one common thing in them.
Yeah.
Even if I look at them as very, very successful in all aspects in their lives, but the humility is still there. They accept all the dark days in their lives, the wrong decisions that they've made, and they consider those decisions as tools, as vehicle, as fuel to push them where they are right now. It's really very, very interesting. And the director herself, Caroline Makaka, who brought us all together, was an event, a worldwide event. Actually, there was just ladies of all nations, but of course, it expanded and also men included. And what was the most interesting being in that seminar is I had reflected, I've been so insecure in my life. I've been through a lot, and there were moments in my life that was so religious because it's just the only thing that I hold on to, to keep going. But then I realized as a journey through life and my RTT journey, my rapid transformational therapy journey is just, I've learned that we just have to be open. Just find the link between science, theology, and spirituality. So learning that principles humbled me that I no one is right or wrong. Just listen, because everybody is trying their best to share their best and to work on becoming the best version of themselves. But that is not an easy process. And me, myself, I'm still processing until now and still learning. And going back to active service, which is our topic, brings me to a very significant thought of, I don't know if you know Tony Robbins. He is 6 core human needs. Have you heard about that, Chef?
Yeah, I
And
know,
Chef?
Tony.
Yeah, the 6 core human needs, and one of those, the sixth, is contribution. So when we process all the things, the experience that we had, the traumas, and we accepted it, and we are aware that we have a wonderful story to share that people can learn. So one important human needs is contribution, which is the act of service, which is what we're talking about.
Yes.
And we can only serve what we have. We cannot give what we don't have. So this is what we are doing right now, is also an act of service, because we all have other things to do as well. And me, I'm not feeling 100% physically, but I'm so happy I'm here, because unconsciously this is, I have to be here, and I don't know who watch this, who will listen to this, because Chuck has a lot, very significant stories also. And Jeff, what are you doing is really amazing, keeping the show going. So we always learn from each other. Like you asked me from my journey, from the seminars, I've been through that, but it's just one common thing that I always observe people, no matter what they have achieved in life, it's all the same. Humility is there. That's why they get to the place where they are right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get some views on Facebook, but we get more views on the YouTube channel, and I'm not really even promoting it all that much. But I never know which of the shows are going to be popular. We have a lot of shows that only have a handful of views, and then every once in a while there'll be one that gets 1, 2, 300 views, and it goes crazy. And I'm not exactly sure what the formula is. I just know that I want to keep putting this out there, and that gradually, we'll develop some type of reputation, and hopefully we inspire some people. So, well, we're getting up close to the top of the hour. Chuck, is there anything else that you wanted to share about service, or what is the message that you try to convey to people from your recovery experience?
So basically, in a nutshell, what I try to convey is that there is a hope and a cure, and recovery will work for each individual, as it has for me. I try to create some relatability into what I've been through and what my thought processes have been and where I am now currently. It's really the strength and the hope part that I like to focus on. And just the fact that so people know that recovery is achievable. And like you said, right, as difficult as it is for some people to hear that we can't have a drink or use a substance for the rest of our lives, that's really a tough thing to swallow. And it's a different path, and it can be a difficult path to get to the point where you can really truly accept that, and live day to day, with the practices and the principles of recovery. But it's really just trying to inspire people and make them aware that, even where they are, there's a path and a program in place to get you out of where you are and achieve a higher sense of self and a higher sense of being.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe that there does come a time in your recovery where the cravings stop, where whatever it is that you were addicted to, you just don't need it anymore. For me with alcohol, it's never a thought. The only time I even consider it is if I'm watching a movie or some show where there's doing a lot of drinking, and for a split second, my mind will think, well, that might be nice. But then that sane part of me goes, no, it won't. You know where that goes. It's, I play the tape forward and I'm like, no, no, no. And really, all I have to do is think of my last drunk, because I am so done with waking up sick, and spending the whole day puking my guts out. I am so done with that there's no chance I'm ever going to drink again. I just can't do it. but I know that it does take some time for a lot of people to get to that point where they finally just snap. They have a shift in consciousness where whatever it was they were using is just not even an option anymore. But that's why we do it, is because the longer you're involved in recovery, the more likely that moment's going to happen for you. And you know, I feel free. I feel liberated from uh, drugs and alcohol. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I feel like, oh, thank God I don't need that stuff anymore.
Yeah,
And
that's a great point, Jeff, because I think that's really, there's a transition period for everyone that goes through it, and understanding and realizing that you're just not missing anything. Um, and I'm not trying to make light or fun of anybody, but I actually enjoy watching people who are kind of intoxicated and a little bit silly and goofy, because I look and I go, yeah, it would be nice for me to be able to do that. But like us, we're way beyond that point. We can't manage that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all. And the cravings have surely subsided and gone away. So
right. And I say something else. It's not a very popular thing, but it's honest for me. Um, I feel that most people that drink with any regularity are high functioning alcoholics. If you're drinking with regularity, then you're high functioning, but you're using it to treat the same things that I was. Where it becomes unmanageable is when you start experiencing consequences, when it got to the point where I didn't know, when I put a bottle to my mouth, I had no idea how the night was going to end. And that's unmanageable, not knowing what's going to happen. And I'm an addict and I cannot do things in moderation. I take everything way too far. It doesn't matter what it is. That's just my nature. And so that's why I have to, work on developing healthier patterns. It's something we were talking about earlier, and you alluded to is, there's this sense of morals. And in the big book, it discusses, and I don't recall the exact verbiage on this, but in the big book, it talks about how moral is simply honest. And so, if there's one word that I would want to pass on to anybody and everybody about recovery, it's honesty. It's when you get honest, then everything else makes sense. It's a lot easier to see how life really works if you're being completely honest with yourself. Denial is the other side of the spectrum. And denial, we brag and complain and we make excuses and we have no accountability. And, you never really progress in life. You just stay stuck if you're in denial all the time.
Right.
So, anything you care to share to cap things off for us, Selyna?
Yeah, to add that honesty thing, yes, that I do agree. Really have to be, and that brings us to being aware to ourselves. Keep working. Let's keep working on ourselves, knowing ourselves, managing our emotions and thoughts, and just be honest what you feel and what you think and process it. And we have to know that our mind cannot hold two conflicting beliefs. So we have the power. What thought, what emotions we have to put action on, because that is, yeah, that is the continuous process. If we are honest with our emotions, it's easy to control.
Yeah. Good
And
point.
yeah, that is just the message to that one. Just be honest with your thoughts and emotions and keep working on managing it the right way we think, we believe. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, Chuck, for being here and sharing your wonderful story.
thank you, Selyna.
All right, Chuck, any last thoughts from you?
No, I'd just like to convey anyone that watches this and sees this. is just don't give up. Keep coming back, keep trying. This program works no matter how many times you have to try to get it. You'll get it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you so much for your time, everybody. Thank you to our guests for sitting in and giving us company while we discuss these things, and we'll see you again. Hopefully next week. I don't have the guests lined up just yet, but we'll figure it out. So have a great day, everyone.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.